Welcome back to Daily Fab Gameplay. I'm Lupine Fiasco, and the Crackle Addicts are eating well this week. Wednesday saw the release of the First Strike Aurora deck lists, which gave us our first look at some new Lightning and Runeblade cards, as well as Aurora's presumptive weapon, Starfall. I've been sizzling with ideas about how to brew Aurora all this week, and I'm excited to dig into it with you. First things first, subscribe to my channel to keep up with all my Aurora content. I'll be staying on top of everything Lightning Runeblade, and now you can too. I have a Twitter, a Patreon, and many Fabery deck lists, all of which are in the video description below. Leave any questions or feedback you have in the comments section. What's your hot tech? What are your Aurora spec buys? And what are you cooking for her release? Here are some ideas to get you started. Starfall is the most exciting part of Aurora's kit so far. It starts in play, stays in play, and is very likely what we'll be swinging with most of the time. The weapon attacks for 1 at the cost of 1 resource, but we can pump that up to 2 power with Go Again if we've played a Lightning card this turn. While we can never accuse this of being as strong as Rosetta Thorn, it tells us 2 important things about how we will likely build Aurora. First, we want to lean into Lightning. When a hero's text and weapon both reference the same card type, that's worth paying attention to. Cards that have historical precedence in Runeblade, such as Swarming Gloomveil or Revel in Runeblood, are less likely to be good in Aurora decks because they don't interact with the Lightning type, or our new keyword, Lightning Flow. That isn't to say they won't be good, but they likely aren't a priority. That also means cards that were too niche or cute to see play in Briar might have new life with Aurora. Flicker Wisp and Weave Lightning stand out as synergistic glue pieces that just couldn't compare to the raw power of slapping down a Channel Mount Heroic and going ham with generic draw effects. Second, we can already see far less emphasis on the traditional Runeblade identity of playing both attack and non-attack actions for a benefit. The power and ubiquity of Rosetta Thorn pushed Runeblades into playing an even ratio of the 2 card types, which could limit their damage output if they ever drew a poor mix in any given hand. The dreaded Runeblade hand of 4 attacks or 4 non-attacks may end up being much less frequent for Aurora, as she currently is not motivated to run an even split of the 2. That said, she will likely want a high density of Lightning cards to play to both her weapon and hero power, which may push us into playing a high count of non-attacks and instants, and leading to potential Aurora hands. Brewing Lightning non-attack actions like Weave Lightning with a mix of Lightning attack actions like Lightning Surge will be crucial. Until we know more though, Aurora Brews are free to play the best cards regardless of their type. Speaking of the best cards, we've seen a few worth talking about. Burn Up with Spoiled Force over the Pro Tour weekend, and oh boy, is it a doozy. By Ronin Renegades from Emberblaze Headlong, one of the absolute best cards that Fi could play. What if I told you that our 2-block 4-power Go Again is now a 3-block 5-power Go Again? What if I also told you that it has the reach to end a game without ever needing to attack? What if I also told you that it triggers on a weapon hit, not just an attack action card? And finally, what if I told you that it has incredible synergy with the previously mentioned Flicker Wisp? The Ruled Surprise article about the meld mechanic, published on July 30th, confirms that the melded halves of a card will have the property of both halves, meaning that Burn Up and Shock will both count as actions when melded. Fused Flicker Wisp sees Shock, now an action card effect, deal arcane damage and will pump it up from 1 to 2. Then, when an attack hits, we'll see Burn Up, an action card effect, deal arcane damage and will pump it up from 4 to 5. We're looking at a 2-card 9 that only goes up from there. Burn Up will be one of the best cards in our deck. Speaking of 0 for 5s, let's talk about Static Shock. Even on its own, a 0 for 4 that blocks 3 is extremely playable. More than that, Aurora looks to be all about synergy, and Static Shock has plenty of it. Open your turn with a Weave Lightning, Sizzle, or Fry, and you're looking at a potential 2-card 8. You'll hear me talk a lot about Flicker Wisp over the next month, and with good reason, I think. Wisp turns Static Shock into a potential 1-card 6, and a hand of Flicker Wisp, Burn Up, and Static Shock is a very potent 3-card 15. Static Shock plays well as a finisher and a combo piece and should contribute to a whole greater than the sum of its parts. I mentioned Weave Lightning, Sizzle, and Fry, and I want to give them more attention. Fi players know the power of a good head jab, and Aurora delivers lightning head jabs like never before. Weave Lightning may be the worst of the three. Giving your fused attacks go again has potential upside, but the downside is the inability to buff your weapon. Sizzle, on the other hand, affects attacks, not just attack action cards. That includes your weapon, which has the lightning type line. Sizzle or Fry and a blue in hand all contribute to a 2-card 5 that banks an embodiment of lightning, which, while not the strongest play in the game, is still very good and sets up for your next hand. If we find that building with non-attack action head jabs is the correct way to go, then we will likely see Vela Flash join Flicker Wisp as an older card that finds new life. Vela Flash may not have go again, but we can fuse and cheat in non-attack actions that do. In many cases, this won't do anything special. Cheating in a Sizzle doesn't impact the Vela Flash itself, and telegraphing incoming damage shouldn't create too many blowouts. Cheating in Burn Up, however, creates a massive damage spike that our opponent likely didn't expect, especially if we have the cards in hand to fuse something else. Show your opponent a Sizzle on the fuse, let them hold cards to block your follow-up to Vela Flash, then Rune Grenade them for 4. Playing 1-cost attacks like Vela Flash and pairing them with Starfall tells us that we may not always want to use our hero power in a turn, which also opens the door to fit Spellbound Creepers into our cost curve. Creepers are admittedly a little more speculative, as we need to see more of Rosetta before deciding whether there are enough good non-attack actions worth cheating in. Snapdragon Scalers were usually good enough for Briar, and they may be good enough for Aurora. What isn't speculative is our only Majestic Lightning spoiler so far, an absolute slam dunk of a card named Channel Lightning Valley. This card is insane. Instant speed card draw that replaces itself and keeps going for as long as we can keep it around. Imagine this 2-turn scenario. Your opponent passes the turn and your hand includes Channel Lightning Valley and Burn Up. Before the end of your opponent's turn, you play CLV, then play Shock and draw a card. Next, you proceed to take your turn. You play Flicker Wisp and fuse it, dealing 2 points of damage and drawing a new card from CLV. Next, you pitch Blue Heaven's Claws to pay for your turn, then bottom it to pay CLV's flow cost. On your opponent's turn, they attack you and you block with Sigil of Suffering. Your opponent, foolish enough to leave Arcane Barrier in the sideboard, takes 1 point of damage and CLV draws you a card. Finally, on your turn, you chip in another point of damage and draw a 4th card before CLV is destroyed. At the end of all of this, you spent 1 card to draw 4, and none of the hoops forced you to make plays you didn't already want to make. What was the cost of benefiting from CLV? Dealing split damage on every turn of the game, thereby advancing your own winning line? This card should absolutely be an auto-include in every Aurora brew. Finally, I'll give a quick nod to Tales of Aria All-Star Lightning Press. If LSS spoiling an extended art calling exclusive Lightning Press didn't tell you the card is incredible, let me confirm it will be an Aurora staple. It fuses with Vela Flash and Flicker Wisp, it pumps your on-hits at instant speed, it's even playable on defense in case you need to trigger Phantasm or ditch it in response to a weakest link effect. Expect to play this card often and to great effect. Crackle addicts, we have a lot to think about. What I've talked about today doesn't even touch on how we can incorporate old Briar staples like Snatch and Coax a Commotion. Purple Phi has a lot going on and sequencing will be queen. Rosetta release is just under 2 months away, but trust me, you are not going to want to miss our return to form as I begin my Aurora gameplay reviews. I'll be talking about spoilers as we get them, so subscribe to my channel and follow me on Twitter to make sure you don't miss any of it. Until the next time I see you on Daily Fab Gameplay, take care.